So welcome students in this second lecture on heat conduction. In the last lecture actually some video was missing, that's why I am starting from this slide. So we are discussing on the special cases of heat conduction equations for solid substance. So the second special case here you can see steady state heat conduction. At steady state means it is clear that this term on the right hand side will be equal to 0 because temperature of the control volume is not going to change with time, and here you can see that there will be heat generation. So heat generation is there, so if heat generation is there, so this quantity is not 0. So if heat generation is there, then what will be the form of the equation? Along with that, we are considering one extra thing, that is thermal conductivity is also constant, that means homogeneous. So what will be the form of the equation? It will be del 2T del x2 plus del 2T del y2 plus del 2T del z2, and that will be equal to plus q dot, if you divide both sides by k, it will be this form. So this is what will be the form of the equation for the second case that has been mentioned here, which is steady state heat conduction with heat generation. So heat generation term is non-zero, but it is a steady state equation. For the third one, if you see, where it is a steady state heat conduction, so right hand part is 0 and without heat generation. Without heat generation means this quantity is also 0. So what will be the form of the equation? So the form of the equation will be del 2T del x2 plus del 2T del y2 plus del 2T del z2, which is equal to 0. And this particular form in mathematics is called a Laplace equation. Remember, here also we have considered that k is constant. So this is what is the Laplace equation, and in del operator it can be written as del 2T is equal to 0. Now the fourth one, if you see that one dimensional steady state heat conduction without heat generation, for this one, if we consider that particular dimension is the x direction, so it will take the form del 2T del x2 is equal to 0, because no heat generation term, no gradient in the y and z directions are significant, only in one dimension it is significant. Let us consider that direction is x direction, so del 2T del x2 is equal to 0. Remember, here also we have considered that thermal conductivity is constant. So these are the different special cases of the heat conduction equation. Now coming to see what is the form of the heat conduction equation if we want to analyze any cylindrical system. Okay, so in a cylindrical coordinate, in this particular lecture I am not going to derive this heat conduction equation that you can see here. This is what is the heat conduction equation in the cylindrical coordinate system, but I just want to give you a hint that how to derive it. Definitely you have to use the Fourier's law of heat conduction, and for that this is what is the form of the Fourier's law of heat conduction in a cylindrical coordinate system. You know that heat flux is a vector quantity, so it's three component in three directions, like r, phi is remember here is the polar coordinate direction, and z. In r, phi and z, in these three directions the heat flux quantities are like this, that minus k into del t del r, where r is the radial direction that you can see, r is the radial direction. So here in the second picture, if you see, in this picture if you see that this point, the red point has been shown, and whose coordinate in the cylindrical coordinate system is denoted by r is the radial position of that point from the z axis, and phi is the polar coordinate. This is what is the phi angle, you can see phi. Okay, the polar coordinate, and its height along the z direction from the base plane is what is z. So this is the coordinate of the point, that is r phi z. Now around that point, if you consider a cylindrical element, very small cylindrical element as shown here, the very small cylindrical element, and that has been actually here magnified, and you try to see that what are the dimensions in this r phi and z direction. That is very important. If you know the dimensions in the r phi and z direction, you can find out the temperature gradient, because you know heat flux is proportional to temperature gradient. So temperature gradient means what? Temperature divided by certain distance in the particular direction. So this particular direction might be r direction, it can be phi direction, it can be z direction, but it should have temperature gradient, should have a unit of, definitely the unit of temperature per unit length, Kelvin per meter or degree centigrade per meter. So try to remember the unit. Okay, so in the r direction, definitely this is a del T del R, this is what is the temperature gradient, and heat flux in the r direction is proportional to that, and the thermal conductivity is K, and the negative sign that you know. Similarly in the z direction, it is simple that the temperature gradient is del T del Z, that is proportional, okay, and multiplied by minus K. Now in the phi direction, see, one thing that you remember, in the phi direction, if you look at this figure, and here you can see the z direction is clear. This is what is the z direction. You can understand that this is the length dz of the element, and that is why here you see the dz is there. In the r direction, if you see, this is what is the length dr. Okay, this is what is the length dr. That is why here you can see dr is there. So in the phi direction, which is the phi direction? The phi direction is this direction. Try to see, this direction is what is the phi direction. So if you see carefully, this is what is the phi direction. This is what is the phi direction. So in the phi direction, so what is the length in the phi direction? The length in the phi direction is what? R d phi. So R d phi is the length in the phi direction, because remember this d phi do not have any dimension. Okay, so d phi do not have any dimension. If you multiply it by r, then only it will get a dimension of length. Okay, and that is required, and that is why here you see, in when we are writing the temperature gradient, it is del T by R d phi. Okay, so in that way also you can remember, and multiplied by minus K, it is simple. So this is how the Fourier's law of heat conduction, Fourier's law of heat conduction for the cylindrical coordinate system in 3 different directions, that is required, that is important, you know. And what else you know? Similarly the Taylor series truncation that you have to do. Here it is q phi, here it is q phi plus d phi. You have to write what is q phi plus d phi. Similarly, what you have written in case of a Cartesian coordinate, you have to write q r plus d r and q z plus dz, and you have to apply the basic energy equation, and if you do that, finally you will come up with this equation. So I will suggest you try of yourself whether you can derive it or not. Definitely in the interactive session I will help you if you can't do it. Okay, but the important thing is that you try to remember the final form of the equation. Another reason is there, I am not going into the detail in the derivation. The reason is that the equation, the form that you can see over here, the 3-dimensional form, it's very difficult to solve in general. So basically in most of the cases, most of the problems that we are going to solve in this course, you will find it is only restricted to the 1-dimensional. Okay, so that is why this particular thing, deriving this particular thing is very simple, and that is why you are not taking that complications all the time, but it is always suggested that try to remember the final form of the equation. That definitely help you in many general problems. Again, just to give you some idea that how the spherical coordinates work, it can be the problems related to the spherical coordinate. Here you can see the 3 different components in the r, phi and theta direction. Important thing that you have to remember, the 3 different coordinates by which a particular point in a spherical coordinate system is specified. Here you can see r is what is the radial direction r. The phi, remember phi is what is the azimuth angle. Okay, phi is the azimuth, okay, azimuthal angle or the azimuth angle, and the theta, remember here is the polar angle. Theta is the polar angle, okay, and r is the radial direction. So this azimuth, polar and the radial direction, by these three coordinates basically a particular point is denoted. As you can see in this diagram, it is clear. Okay, so now if you take a very small element around this point, exactly similar to the other cases, and if you magnify it, you will find this thing. And as you know that Fourier's law of heat conduction, in the three different direction, r, theta and phi direction, if you want to write, you see you need the temperature gradient. For the r direction, it is very simple because it is del T del r, because here you can see this particular direction is nothing, this particular direction coming to this picture, and this particular direction is dr. Okay, and in the if you see in the theta direction, the theta direction is the polar direction, that means this direction here you can see. So that direction, what is the elemental length? So this is what is the elemental length in the theta direction. Okay, so that direction, that length is definitely r d theta. So here it is r and here it is d theta, so this is r d theta. So that is why here you see the gradient in the polar direction is del T by r del theta. Okay, now in the phi direction, that is the azimuth direction, you see, so this is what is the length of in the azimuth direction. This is what is the length in the azimuth direction, and if you see what is that length, it is very clear from this figure. Try to look at this figure. In this figure, look at this figure. This is the point where the radial position is r. Now if you just drop a perpendicular from this point, you see this length, right? Then tell me what is this length. If this length is r and this angle is theta, definitely this angle is 90 minus theta. So r cos of 90 minus theta is r sin theta. So definitely this length is r sin theta. Okay, so this length is r sin theta, and here it is phi. So after that, if you consider a very small length of d phi, so what will be this length? That is r sin theta d phi. So here this is basically that length. Okay, so r sin theta is this length. This length is what is r sin theta, and then it is what is the d phi. So this is what is r sin theta d phi. So that is why here you can see this is what is the gradient, and then multiplied by minus k. So other things are similar along the phi direction and along the theta direction. The heat rate of heat transfer you have to shown, and you have to apply the truncated Taylor series, and if you apply the basic energy equation, you finally come up with the this particular form. Okay, so I will suggest again to remember the final form if it is possible, but it is not expected that in the examination this kind of derivations will be given to you. This is not a very good question for the examination, but definitely for your interest you can try at your home, and definitely I will help you if you stuck anywhere. Okay, we have seen the heat conduction equation in Cartesian, cylindrical and spherical coordinate. Now to solve the differential equations, we need the boundary conditions. As you know, to solve the differential equations we need boundary conditions or the initial conditions. These are important things to solve the general differential equations. But here you can see some of the boundary conditions that has been mentioned. Here you can see that first one, there may be a boundary condition like this. If you consider this is a plane wall, and suppose this wall temperature is known. If you consider this wall temperature is known, and suppose that temperature is Ts as mentioned here, suppose this Ts is known, it is given. So it is kind of a boundary condition. So you know as if at x is equal to 0 what is the temperature. Okay, so that temperature is suppose Ts. So this is a kind of a boundary condition. These kind of boundary conditions where temperature at a particular wall or particular position is given, it is called Dirichlet boundary condition. So Dirichlet boundary condition, this is a mathematical terminology used to represent this form of boundary condition. Now, instead of giving temperature at a particular wall, it may be given that what is the rate of heat transfer that is taking place, or what is the heat flux that is transferring that surface. Okay, so that heat flux might be given. So heat flux is given, suppose here it is given, and here you can see this is the Fourier's law of heat conduction. You know, for the heat flux it is minus k del T del x, but at x is equal to 0. At x is equal to 0, suppose heat flux is given. So when heat flux is known, this kind of boundary conditions are called Newman boundary condition or natural boundary condition. Okay, so Newman boundary condition means that heat flux is given. Temperature is given means it is the Dirichlet boundary condition. Now it may be given that it is insulated, one particular wall which is insulated. That means it is again a kind of boundary condition where basically the heat transfer is 0. Insulated or adiabatic means basically there is no rate of heat transfer taking place through that surface. So it is kind of a del T del x, which is according to Fourier's law, if heat flux is proportional to temperature gradient, but at which point the temperature gradient, that is x is equal to 0. So at x is equal to 0, the temperature gradient is 0. So this is what is the adiabatic boundary condition. Again, since it is a form of a heat flux that is given, so it is again also a Newman boundary condition. Now see, convection surface condition, that also sometimes given, but temperature is not given or heat flux is not given, but it is known that at this point the convection is taking place from the fluid surface outside. So in that case, what we do, definitely we will apply the concept that since surface cannot store any energy, so that heat that will be convected, the same heat will be transferred within the body through conduction. So rate of conduction heat flux, definitely the conduction heat flux definitely will be equal to the convective heat flux. Okay, so this is what is the kind of boundary condition that you can apply at the surface. So this kind of boundary condition here, it is not that exact the temperature is given or the heat flux is given. It is a mixed kind of a boundary condition, and that is why it is called mixed boundary condition. These are the different types of boundary conditions can be mentioned in the and based on which you have to find out the solution. Now see, one dimensional steady state heat conduction without heat generation. So this is a special case. Already we have seen this particular special case, and the question is we are going to spend a lot of time in this particular case. The first thing is that why this assumption? What this assumption, by the time you understand that 1D steady state condition means only in one direction the conduction is important, in other two directions the conductions are not so important. So that is why it is 1D. Steady state means, that means with respect to time the temperatures within the body are not going to change. Okay, so heat conduction equation, that means heat is only conducted, no other form of heat is transferring, and without heat generation, that means heat generation term is not there. Simply from the general heat conduction equation for a solid substance, if you consider these two term is 0, because no heat generation, steady state, and since it is one dimensional, so let us consider this two term is also 0. So this is what is the final form of the equation for 1D steady state heat conduction equation. The question is why this particular assumption, the assumption, whether this assumption is at all practical or not. Yes, the answer is this assumption in many situations are very, very practical, because when the situation is practical, try to understand this thing first, because after initial transient period when overcome, after that a long time maybe it is under steady state. Okay, so steady state heat conduction is very common. Second thing is there are lot of situation or many situations where there is no heat generation is really there. Okay, hardly any situations that we design where heat generation is important. And regarding the one dimensional assumption, that is also practical in many situations if the dimensions in the other two directions are very long. Okay, if the dimensions in other two directions are very long with respect or very large with respect to the dimensions in a particular direction where you are basically considering the significant temperature gradient or the temperature difference in other two directions if they are very small. So the idea is if these temperature gradients del T del Y or del T del Z, if they are very very small, if they are close to 0, then we can neglect. And when they will be close to 0, that means if you consider this is a slab, then in the Y direction, that means if you consider this is the Y direction, in that direction maybe the length is very very large. If the length is very very large, then definitely this del T del Y is going to be very very small. Okay, or if the temperature difference between these two ends may be very very small, so this quantity will be very small, so that will decrease this quantity to a very low value. Or in the Z direction in a similar way, if the temperature difference is small or if the length is very very large in those directions, in that case you can neglect these quantities. But in the X direction maybe things are significant, so only this. So from the practical problem you have to take the decision whether you can consider it one dimensional problem or not. Okay, so that is a very very important, and these are the guidelines that when you can consider that heat conduction in the other directions can be neglected. Okay, what about the solution? It's a very simple. The solution, if you just simply integrate, you will get that temperature will be equal to C1x plus C2. Okay, so it's a linear temperature variation, it is clear. Now you have to find out the C1 and C2, these two constants, and definitely that will come from the boundary conditions. So boundary conditions, you can take Dirichlet boundary condition. Let us consider this is a plane wall, and suppose at x is equal to 0, you know the temperature is Ts1. At x is equal to L, if you consider the temperature is Ts2. Okay, so at both ends it is the Dirichlet boundary condition known. So you just simply put these boundary conditions here. At x is equal to 0, temperature is Ts1. At x equal to, you will get two equations, so you can solve easily C1 and C2, and you can find out the temperature field. And that temperature field, as you can see here, is this one. It's a linear temperature field that you are getting. Okay, so in this way, by solving the heat conduction equation, you can find out the temperature field. That means how the temperature is varying along x. So now if I tell you that what is the x, you can tell me that what will be the temperature. So at any x, you can now tell me what is the value of temperature. So now we know the temperature field. Since we have considered one dimensional, so with y and z direction this temperature is not varying, temperature is varying only in the x direction. Since we have considered it's a steady state problem, so with respect to time also temperature is not going to change. Okay, so it is only function of x. That is why here you can see temperature is only function of x, it is not function of time or y or z, and that is why in place of partial we have used the ordinary derivatives. So here is the temperature field that we have just seen. It is very important that in deriving up to this much, what are the assumptions that you have considered. This is very very important, starting from the 1D steady state, constant thermal conductivity, solid substance, all these are very very important assumptions, and try to list all these assumptions. So if you know the temperature field, it is very easy to find out the heat flux. Here it is the rate of heat generation, not the heat flux. Here it is the heat flux. So rate of heat generation will be what? That is equal to minus K into area into dt dx. Okay, so if you just simply do it, dt dx, as you can see from here, you can find out this temperature difference by L into K into A. Similarly, you can find out what is the heat flux. What are the important observation here? The first important observation is definitely the temperature field is linear under this condition. Temperature is linear variation of temperature. This is the first observation. Assumptions are very important. Under what assumptions it is coming? The temperature is linear, there is no heat generation, steady state. These are the important 1D. So all these are very, very important assumptions. 2, the second observation, you can see that rate of heat transfer by conduction through the material, that is not function of x. In the final expression you see that x is not there, which means that the Qx is constant, that is not changing. And similarly in 3 also you can see that heat flux along x direction, that is also constant, because that is also not changing along x. Okay, another very important assumptions that we can see here, we have considered that area, cross sectional area is not changing, cross sectional area is fixed, which is constant. If the cross sectional area is constant, then as you can see that rate of heat generation and the heat flux both are constant. Okay, so if the cross section is constant, then we can definitely say this. But if the cross section is varying, in that case definitely remember the rate of heat transfer might change with the cross section, but the heat flux will be same. Heat flux is not going to change, but definitely the rate of heat transfer is going to change if the cross section changes. That is important thing. Any other observation? Another very important observation that we can make here is that this temperature field is linear. That is very important observation. Okay, heat flux. Okay, and here it is the rate of heat transfer by conduction. Okay, so these are the important observations that we have noted. Now next we go to the concept of thermal resistance. Now this is very important concept. Here you can see the rate of heat transfer Qx, which is equal to minus Ka into dt dx. We already seen this expression, simply heat flux multiplied by area. So this is the expression. You can see, remember this expression is true only for what? One dimensional steady state without heat generation, constant thermal conductivity. Under all these conditions this is true. Assumptions always try to remember. Now if you just compare this equation with the electrical analogy, if you try to make, then you will find that in this rate of heat transfer can be compared with the electric current. Okay, and this temperature difference can be compared with the potential difference. Okay, so this can be compared with the potential difference, like E1 minus E2, and definitely the remaining thing will be the resistance. And you know by Ohm's law how they are related, that resistance in the electrical conductor, Re is equal to potential difference divided by electric current. So this we know in case of electrical system. Similarly in thermal system we can write that the thermal resistance for conduction, thermal resistance RT indicates thermal resistance, means conduction. So RT conduction, thermal resistance in conduction is equal to what? Exactly in a similar way, the temperature difference divided by rate of heat transfer. Okay, so if you just simply put these things, that Ts1 minus Ts2 by Qx, and that will be equal to L by Ka. So thermal resistance in case of conduction, the expression is L by Ka, and the unit is very clear, because here you can see what is the unit of the temperature difference is definitely Kelvin, and the unit of the rate of heat transfer is what is watt. So unit will be Kelvin per watt. Now here you can see the convection. In case of a convection, you can in a similar way can define the thermal resistance for the convection. So from the Newton's law of cooling, you know the rate of heat transfer is equal to HA into Ts minus T infinity, where Ts is the surface temperature of a body and T infinity is the fluid temperature. Okay, and the heat is transferred through convection. So here H is what is the convection coefficient of the fluid, and here area is the surface area through which the convection is taking place. Okay, this surface area. So exactly in a similar way you can write that Ts minus T infinity, heat is the temperature difference or the reason that why heat is transferring, divided by the rate of heat transfer by convection. If you do that, it is coming that 1 by HA. So 1 by HA is basically the thermal resistance for equivalent thermal resistance for the convection. Okay, so in this way we can define the thermal resistance by equivalent thermal circuit. You can now draw considering this concept. Okay, so as if some thermal resistance is there, here is some temperature, say Ts1, here is some temperature Ts2, okay, and through which it is the rate of heat which is transferring along that direction. This is what is the whole idea. Now if we have understood that what is thermal resistance, then definitely we can make the equivalent thermal circuit for a particular problem. So here let us consider a problem where not only conduction is taking place but also convection is taking place. That means let us consider this is a case of a plane wall, and in this plane wall its dimensions are such, let us consider only one dimension heat is transferring, conduction, one dimensional conduction heat is transferring, and here consider the hot fluid is there, and here you consider the temperature of the hot fluid is T infinity 1, T infinity 1, T infinity 1. This is what is the temperature of the fluid, and it is also known that the convective heat transfer coefficient of this fluid is H1. And on the other side of the wall, let us consider it is the cold fluid and the temperature is T infinity 2, and H2 is the convective heat transfer coefficient. So this situation we can consider by an equivalent thermal circuit. So what will be the equivalent thermal circuit? Definitely heat is transferring from the fluid to the solid, and the process is convection. Then from this wall to this wall, this is by the process of conduction. Then from this wall to this fluid, cold fluid, this is again by the process of convection. So if you consider first the temperature here, that means the hot fluid temperature, which is T infinity 1, and then you consider this node, which is basically the plane wall here, the inner wall, say Ts1, and in between these two the resistance, the thermal resistance, is nothing but what? This convection resistance. And this convection resistance already we have seen can be represented by 1 by H1A. Okay, similarly between these two walls it is pure conduction, and other end of the wall the temperature is Ts2, and in between it is the conduction resistance by this material, and we know by the time that conduction resistance under one dimensional steady state without heat generation situation is L by Ka. And then finally heat is transferred from this wall to the fluid, and let us consider the fluid temperature is T infinity 2, and in between the resistance is basically the convection resistance, and which is nothing but 1 by H2 into A. So this is what is the equivalent circuit, and through which it is the rate of heat transfer, which is Qx, that is transferring, and that is same throughout. Okay, so at any point of time the rate of heat transfer is same. It is exactly similar to the circuit which are in series resistance, as you can see in an electrical circuit. Okay, so to analyze this kind of a circuit now will be very easy if you just simply consider like electrical resistance. So what we can write, you just observe that rate of heat transfer will be equal to definitely T infinity minus Ts1. That means you are just considering this point and this point, or this point and this point. So you can write this as T infinity 1 minus Ts1 by the convective resistance. This is what is the rate of heat transfer. Again you can write the same heat transfer between these 2 points, that means between these 2 walls, and that will be what, Ts1 minus Ts2 divided by the conduction resistance. Or you can write that equal to the heat transfer to the cold fluid by convection, so Ts2 minus T infinity 2 by the convective resistance in the cold fluid. Okay, so these are equal. So that thing what we can do, you can simply add all these things at the at the numerator, and you just add all the things in the denominator, and you get this is equal to T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2 divided by the R total. Okay, as you know, we can use this property like A by B. If that is equal to C by D, definitely we can write each of them will be equal to A plus C divided by B plus D. So you can use the same property. That means if you add this quantity plus this quantity plus this quantity, then it will be what, T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2. That what you can see here. And at the bottom, this is nothing but this quantity plus this quantity plus this quantity, and these three summation of these three quantities, as you can see in the equivalent circuit, is nothing but the total resistance summation of these three resistance. So R total is basically this one plus this one plus this one. So heat flux, the rate of heat transfer, you can see is equal to T infinity 1 minus T infinity 2. That means only the fluid temperatures on the either sides divided by the total resistance. This is what is the heat flux. So in this way we can analyze the system consisting of both convection and conduction are present by drawing the equivalent thermal circuit. Now let us see another example, a bit more complicated, where it is not a single material, but here you can see that three different materials are as if connected like this, where their lengths along the x directions are different. Say here it is LA, LB and LC. The material thermal conductivities are different. Okay, and what you have to find out is again the same thing, either the rate of heat transfer or at a particular point what is the temperature. These things may be asked. To do that, again what you can write, you can draw the equivalent thermal circuit first. So what is the equivalent thermal circuit? The first heat will be transferred from the fluid to this wall by convection. So here you can see T infinity 1, then here you see it is Ts1, and the resistance is what, 1 by H1A, that is the convection resistance. Then through this solid, so this is LA divided by K into A. Then with series another material is there, that is L divided by the K of that material into area, cross section. Here remember the cross section is basically perpendicular to that direction, that means maybe in that direction what is the cross section. Okay, so this is what is the cross section. Let us consider that this cross section is same throughout, and that is A. Similarly for the third slab, here you can see LC by KCA is the conduction resistance, and finally from here to the cold fluid it will transfer by convection. So here you can see. So this rate of heat transfer you can write individually like this between any two temperatures, or you can write by adding all these things in the numerator and denominator. So Qx will be this. So here you can see the rate of heat transfer can be T infinity 1 minus T infinity 4, that means the difference of the temperature of the hot and the cold fluid at the numerator, and at the denominator it is the sum of all the resistances in series. Okay, so this is what is the rate of heat transfer we can write. Or what we can do, we can write this qx, the rate of heat transfer, as if equal to as we know is nothing but qx is nothing but this delta t divided by R total, right? R total, sorry, here is the R total. Okay, so this is what is the expression of the rate of heat transfer, you know, in the x direction. So what we have written is here, instead of 1 by R total, we have replaced it by U into A. Why we have written it like U into A? As if it looks like equivalent to some convection is taking place, because in case of a Newton's law of cooling, if you remember how it is written, that is H into A into temperature difference. So where H was the convective heat transfer coefficient, and this equation is valid only in case of convection. But here what is happening, here both conduction, convection, everything is involved. So that is why if we write the equation some kind of a U into A into delta T, just this equation looks like this convection kind of a form, then this U is definitely not convection coefficient. This U is called overall heat transfer coefficient. Overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so U is overall heat transfer coefficient. So what is the definition of U? So definition of U is that this U into A is nothing but 1 by R total. Okay, so total 1 by total thermal resistance is nothing but U into A. So what is U? U is basically area into U is equal to area into R total. So this is what is the definition of U, that you can see here, R total by area. And already we know what is R total. So that is there, as you can see, this is what is the R total, that is which is in the denominator. So that simply multiplied by area. So area term will no longer be there in the expression. So this will become, so here you can see, this will become the final expression of the overall heat transfer coefficient. Okay, so these are the different ways by which people are expressing the rate of heat transfer, and all these are very, very important. When you go to the design of the heat transfer equipments, you will find that why this overall heat transfer coefficient is so important. Now see another example of a composite wall. Here you can see it's not only the series connection of the material. Here you see this is one material, here this is one material, here this is one material, this is another material, this is another material, and these two materials are like in a parallel kind of a connection. See, the whole cross section is not covered. Okay, so the equivalent circuit definitely you can draw in this way. Here you can see as if A by 2 and A by 2 is shared here, because the cross sections are like this. So these are kind of a parallel connection. So if you can draw the equivalent circuit, the remaining thing is very simple. Simply find out the total resistance using the formula that you know for the electrical resistance, that is also applicable here. Find out the total resistance and write the expression of the heat flux, rate of heat transfer as the temperature difference divided by the total resistance. So use this relation to find out the rate of heat transfer. Okay, sorry, this is maybe T1 minus T2 that you just apply. Okay, so this is what is the technique by which this can be done. Okay, and if you have to find out any intermediate temperature, suppose the problem is there, find out what is the intermediate temperature here or what is the intermediate temperature here, and if the T1, T2, these things are known, in that case what you can do, is that first you find out the heat flux, rate of heat transfer, because you know T1 and T2, you know the total resistance. So you first find out what is Q. Then what you do, you apply between these 2 points what is the case. That means here it is T1 and here this is unknown temperature. Say this is T1 prime. Okay, then you can apply definitely the same Q is equal to T1 minus T1 prime divided by this thermal resistance, that is LE into LE divided by KE into A. So if you apply that, definitely here you know what is Q by the time, and you know the properties and the geometry, so you can, and also you know what is T1, so you can find out what is the T1 prime, that means this intermediate temperature. In a similar way you can also find out this intermediate temperature if you just apply it between this point and this point. Okay, so in this way you can also find out the temperature at any point, or you can find out the rate of heat transfer. Now the concept of contact resistance is, till now we have considered in case of composite slabs that if A and B are the 2 slabs are in contact, we have considered that they are in perfect contact. We have not considered the real situations. Maybe they are actually by pressing, by welding, the different way basically the 2 materials are joined. So practical situations here in this picture you can see that only in few positions they are in actually real contact, but many of the places you can see they are places where maybe some air pockets are there, or some fluids are there, or maybe vacuum are there. So basically some gaps are there between the contacts, and that gives rise to another kind of resistance because of those fluid present within that gap. Okay, and definitely the fluids, you know, the thermal conductivity is much less than the solid, so in these are not insignificant. So sometimes they may cause significant contribution in the thermal resistance. So this resistance at the contacts are called the contact resistance. But one very important thing that you have to remember, this contact resistance actually expressed per unit area. So whenever you get in the handbook some predicted data for the thermal contact resistance, you will find that they are represented per unit area. Here you can see the contact resistance, thermal contact resistance per unit area, that is why the double prime is there. Okay, and how that is defined? It is simply defined by the temperature difference between those 2 walls which are in contact, so Ta minus Tb, and that divided by the heat flux which is transferring. Okay, so that divided by the heat flux which is transferring, it is not the rate of heat transfer. Okay, it is the heat flux which is transferring. So this is what is the definition of the contact resistance. So here you can see some of the values of the contact resistance are listed under certain conditions. The conditions are given above, and depending upon the pressures you can see these contact resistances are changes. Depending upon the fluid present in those gap, the contact resistance are changes. These are very obvious that how can, so definitely our objective in many cases will be to reduce the contact resistance so that the heat transfer will be better. So to reduce the contact resistance, definitely by increasing the contact area we can increase the reduce the contact resistance. By increasing contact area, that can be done in 2 ways, either by applying high pressure so that the gap reduced and the contact area increases, or by creating good surface finish before the joining. So in these 2 ways basically you can reduce the gaps, or you can increase the more contact area. And the second one, at the contact surface you can use some highly thermal conductive fluid. Okay, so that also can be used so to increase the to reduce the contact resistance. Okay, thank you for this session, and the next class we'll discuss on in a cylindrical system how to solve the equations and find out the thermal resistance.